Okay, so I'll make a start now. People will join maybe during the presentation, but as I said, I'm recording this presentation, so it'll be available on our YouTube channel. I'll send the link to everyone who's attended, who's registered, once the webinar is complete. So yeah, so I hope you're all well. This morning I wanted to run this webinar because most of our client base, and I know some people have registered are already clients, and there's quite a few who aren't clients. But with a startup or any early stage funding, one of the main things that always is of concern to a business founder is funding. The funding is the fuel for the business to get it going, and especially now, the current climate, it's very difficult to get that funding. So this webinar, a lot of the points in here will be applicable for any environment, even post or pre-COVID when things were fine. A lot of the tips I'm sharing now will be applicable then. There's no difference. But what I'm trying to do, particularly for clients who are looking to get funding now, is just make sure that everything that you've got in place makes you attractive for an investor. And as I said, it doesn't matter if it's COVID-19 environment or if it's a normal environment. These points are all still applicable. But really, it's even harder to get money right now. So you've got to make sure everything is on point. Everything is just so attractive. And I thought, well, it'd be worthwhile to run this short webinar and do this presentation, because I have some clients right now who are actively looking for funding, and we've given them advice on how to do things. But and I've shared this presentation with them, and we've helped them get some funding, and some we're going through now, some deals which are happening. And so we know there's money out there. There's no there are investors willing to put money into businesses. You just got to make sure that what you're presenting to them is attractive. And from my experience, hopefully I'll be able to share that with you in this webinar. So starting through the presentation, the agenda, what I'm going to do, I've kind of touched on it there, but just give you a flavour of what the current investment environment is, because we are working with clients at the moment on getting funding. So we've got quite a hand-on experience on what people are doing with the money, what funds are open, what are not, and what they're looking for. Then we'll look at what funding is available. So I've got a great resource which is a link to a Google document which shows, and it's updated with angel investors and funds and debt funders, and it's a massive list of European investors, and it lists what they're looking for, how much they'll invest, what sectors they're doing, and it's got contact details as well. So it's a really good list. Sometimes, some of the founders, some of our clients ask, is debt or equity, what's the difference, and what's the pros and cons of them. So we'll cover that, and then we'll have a look at grant funding, Innovate Fund, which is a new fund the government have launched on the 20th of May to help businesses in the current environment. And then we'll look at a pitch deck. The pitch deck is most important when you're looking for investment, because it's the first thing an investor will see before they meet you. So just some tips on what makes a good pitch deck, and then just a section on how we can help with that. So just in terms of my background, just to sort of give you some sort of credibility on why I know what I'm talking about in this. I've been involved with startups for many years now. I've worked for private equity houses, and we were looking, and they would put me into businesses where they would either already invested or they were looking to invest, and they would use me as a tie kicker, just check, can you look at the finances? And I've worked not just for private equity, but high net worths as well, some very wealthy individuals who've looked at making investors and angel investments. And I've also done investments myself on a small scale, been involved with startup businesses. I own, in addition to the accounting practice, I've got my other businesses which I've started my own. So I've been in all of your shoes, and know exactly how it is. I know the challenges. I've been there where you're thinking, bloody hell, I'm going to pay wages next week, and I've been there where we've had a load of money and businesses come really successful, and how best to now grow it into other markets. So I have been there and done it, and at the moment now with RJF clients that we have predominantly are startups and early stage businesses. And as I touched on at the beginning, one of the biggest concerns that they have is funding. So we try and help them get them investor ready, which is a key thing for them to do that. So in terms of the current investment environment, what we're finding in the last few months, in general, investors and funds are holding on to cash. They don't know how this is all going to play out. And so they are holding on to it. Also, angel investors, they're getting hit massively by this. They have a lot of cash and stock invested in stocks and assets, and a lot of them don't have free cash. I mean, that's true. A lot of it is tied up, and they're worried, and their investments have gone down with the stock market. So they're concerned, and so they're holding on to these assets and not liquidizing them to turn into cash. And that's, there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy, which everyone in attendance will be aware of. This COVID-19 list of investors. So, I'll share that at the end. I'll share that with all the attendees, and people who've registered. I'll touch on it now. So I'll put the link in the box. So I'll just stop sharing this screen and just go to it and just give you an idea of what it looks like. So if you can see my web browser again, just put in the comment box if you can't. And yeah, so these are the investor status. So again, you'll have access to this. I've put the link in, and then what you can do is in the list here. These are the settings. Just ignore this. Go straight to investors. And then here you've got a list of European investors, and people keep this up to date. So I got this through a startup magazine, which I'm involved with, and they had this database and investors, funds, angel investors. And here you can see, here you'll have the fund or the angel investor, what type, the accelerator, angel investors, venture capitalists, if they're still accepting pitches. So some aren't, but some are, and yes, you can see there. And you can go through here. They're explaining if they're still actively investing, what region, their websites here, what they typically invest in, what stage, early stage, seed investment, pre-seed. You can see here how you can apply, contact name and email, and anything else that they have. So it's a really good list. And as I said, this is a real live document, so it's being updated all the time. But you're more, and I'll touch on how you contact these people because you can't just do a blanket email. But yeah, it's quite a good list, and I think very important to have a look at. So I've put that into the chat box, and again, I'll send a link with a email. After the webinar. Banks are still lending. I mean, they're doing a lot under these government business-backed loans, and even some other type of loans. The opportunity for lower interest rates is there because banks are dropping interest rates on some of the loans. So banks, and we'll come on to whether debt is a good thing or not, and what the pros and cons are. There is money available for businesses that are offering products or services that can help in the current situation. So if anything that you're doing sort of tech-wise, or anything that you're doing to help sort of COVID-19 and businesses or consumers or anything like that, anything related to that, there is money available for that. There are funds and grants that you can apply for to do that. But yeah, I mean, I think in general, the current investment environment is difficult, and hence why I wanted to do this presentation, because I want clients to be able to really make sure everything's in place and there's nothing that puts them off having a look at your business, because there is money there that people will invest in the right thing. So the funding is available, and how do we get it? Well, I've just sent you the link there, so by all means you can have a look at that. The different types of funding we'll touch on in more detail, just maybe some people don't have experience of this, and what the different terms are. So equity. So when you're getting equity funding, this is when you sell a share of your business in return for finance. So you're giving away your business, a percentage of your business, in return for money. We're going to go through the pros and cons of equity and debt. There are some real big incentives for investors to put money into your business. There's a seed enterprise investment scheme, which HMRC offer up to a 50% reduction in income tax for the investor. So, for example, if someone invests £100,000 into your business and he's got a tax bill equivalent to cover the 50%, he can claim £50,000 off his tax bill as an investment to you, and also 70% of it's protected. So if the business fails and falls down, then he gets protected. Now, there are eligibility criteria, and you have to get things like assured advance assurance from HMRC, and it's one thing that, you know, anyone that's looking for funding and, you know, equity, I always say, look, get this in place, get the application, because it will switch off a lot of investors. It's a great tax incentive. It's one of the best in Europe, to be honest, and at the moment it's still around, and there's no indication that they're going to remove that. So definitely get your advance assurance, and again, it's something that I can help with on that. Debt, so it's obvious money you borrow from the bank or alternative lenders and pay back with interest over a period of time. And grants, these are non-repayable funds, often granted by the government or foundations, and they're given for innovative companies. So I'm hesitant to use the term, but I can't think of any other term, but it's free money, in the sense that, you know, you're not giving away any of your business and you're not having to pay it back. There may be some grants where you do have to pay back, and we'll touch on grants later. So, I mean, in terms of debt, you know, what's available, it's limited for startups, as you probably found yourself. Banks like to see accounts and record of trading. There are startup loans available. So a startup loan is a personal loan which you take out, and you must use it for your business. And I know some clients have those loans. Typically, you can be paying between 7.5% up to 10% interest on those. Personal guarantees are often requested. Personal guarantees are basically mean, even if you've got a limited company, if the company goes bust and you've not paid the loan back, the bank can come after you personally for it. So debt is available for startups. It's limited. You can, if you've got security, there are funds, debt funds, which will give money at attractive rates. But the security, you know, most of the time it's something like property or a guarantor. So, you know, debt is really hard to do for startups. And would I recommend it? It puts a lot of pressure on your business, but there are some pros and cons of it, and we can turn to that later. We'll have a look at that. Grants. So, you know, there are hundreds of grants available for small businesses. Government's grants for new businesses in the UK, you know, cover a range of awards. Saving money on premises, they'll give you sort of savings on premises and rates. You can buy cheap plant or IT equipment, and they come in a number of forms. There's over 200 grants available at the moment for small businesses across the UK. Even though they're all available, getting them is another thing. They can be really challenging. A lot of red tape to go through, can take a lot of time. You know, they are often complex with lots of processes and stages, and each grant has its own requirements and criteria for applying. Most small business grants are awarded to help launch new businesses, and the aim of that is to generate jobs. So when you apply for these grants, it's really in your applications. I always advise you on, look, it's about generating jobs. This is my business. It's going to stimulate the economy. These are all the kind of things that the people who award the grants are looking for. Established businesses, you know, there's fewer grants. There's more grants for sort of small and startups. In here is a little guide on applying for government grants. But again, you can contact me if you need any help with that and trying to find them and applying for them. So, I mean, how do you apply for a business grant? Again, each scheme is different, but, you know, check you meet the general terms of criteria before you go too far. So I've seen people, you know, they've gone right down doing the whole application, and then there's a little in the terms and conditions, it says, well, your business, the sector you're doing your business isn't applicable for this grant. So you've just wasted a load of time and money in putting the application. So always check that first. Most grants are very specialist, so it's in a certain area, so innovation, R&D, certain things they are very specialist to help and support. Just some tips here of some successful grants that we've done for clients in the past. So just a few tips here. Talking to the grant body, the best way is to speak to them first if you can, and just get a flavour of what they're looking for. It just makes the successful application. Sorry, makes the more chance of the application be successful, because what they'll do, they'll just get a lot of emails, a lot of applications, and sifting paperwork. But if you can talk to them, it just puts you at the front of their mind. It's important to read the grant objectives. Take time to learn why the grant is being awarded, what's its aims. Are they awarding the grant so you can create jobs from the local community, environmental friendly products? There's lots of grants at the moment related to COVID-19. If you can do something which will help with the current crisis, then there are grants available. And then when you do the application, always refer to the objectives as closely as possible, because that stands you in better stead for the application, because they see that you've read the criteria and what you're applying for relates to what they want to achieve with the grant. The business plan is super important. With other types of funding, a business plan, but a grant, it's important that you have that. And then focus on the grant use. So grants are usually awarded for specific projects. So you can't get a grant just because you want to pay yourself a wage, or you want to buy a car or anything like that. It has to be for very specific projects, such as IT equipment, or if you need to do a broadband installation, you can get these grants. Check your funding. Most grants will look to match the amount you're willing to invest. And when they say match, if you apply for a grant for 10 grand, they're saying, well, we'll give you the grant for 10 grand, but you've got to show that you've got £10,000 to match that. So always check your funding and you're able to do that. That's not with all grants, but quite a few grants do that. And apply early. You've got a better chance of receiving a grant if you apply when a scheme first launches. So it's good to keep your the finger on the pulse on what grants are available. Innovate UK is a good source to look at, because the grants have a limited pot of money and it can go very fast. So it's always good to keep on top of what's available. I touched on debt and equity, and as I said, for startups and early stage businesses, I think debt, it's such a difficult thing to do, because you want the money to kickstart your business, but then your business is so much under pressure to generate cash flow to meet those repayments. But there are advantages. So debt finance and equity finance in this little table here. So debt, you keep your own business. You're not giving it anything away. But with equity, if someone gives you money for the business, you give away the shares. You've not got that risk of having to meet a monthly payment for the debt. Obviously your business has got to be successful because the investor has put the money in and he wants to see a return. But the risk, it is the investor's risk, because the business could fail and he's got no comeback. Equity has no comeback. You're never going to have to give that money back. You've sold shares in your company. In terms of debt financing, once you've paid the debt, that's it. You've got no obligations. Equity financing, again, you don't have to pay back the funds. Debt financing and interest, you get tax deductions. So, everyone likes a tax deduction. Equity finance advantages are that, if you get that equity finance, the first one is the most difficult. Once you've got that, you get credibility through investor networks, and once you've got over that one, then it usually is easier to get more equity finance. Debt, advantage, you have got short and long term, so you can get, right, I just need a small loan, I know I can pay back in a year and then that's it done. Or you think, well, I'd like a bigger loan, but I can spread it over 5 years and helps the business with the cash flow. Investors don't expect an immediate ROI, which stands for return on investment. So they know they're investing in a startup. They know it's going to be maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years before they can get anything. Obviously, that gives you more cash on hand. You've got the injection of cash, equity, fixed payments, which can be better for budgeting, because the equity doesn't have to be all in one lump sum. It can come in stages as and when you need. So disadvantages, kind of touch on that. Obviously, you've got to pay it back. You've got to give a personal guarantee in most cases. Could cause cash flow issues when you've got to pay the repayments back and interest. And collateral is the same, you know, personal guarantees or maybe some sort of security as an asset, you know, like a house, property, something like that. Disadvantage of equity, you know, investors' returns. So what you're having to pay back the investor as a dividend could be more than debt payments. You know, you're giving away your business, so you know that can be seen as disadvantage. And I'll touch on why it's important to choose the right investor. And you know, you've got to consult the investor for decisions. They may have things in the agreement which says, you know, you can't do certain things without their say so. Even if they haven't got a majority shareholding, they may want, you know, things in there which say you can't appoint anyone with, I've seen things where you can't appoint anyone with over a 25 grand a year salary without their approval, or you can't spend money on certain things without their approval. You know, they'll have restrictions in there. So, you know, it definitely were, you know, you have to weigh it up. There are some advantages of debt. The cash comes in quicker. Equity can take a long time. It can take a long time to come through. I touched on about SEISS and EIS. These are really good incentives for investors, which the HMRC give tax breaks to them. So if you're not familiar with them, I'll just do a quick little explanation of them. Again, if you want any more help with this or understand it a bit more, feel free to contact me. So if you're a startup, and if you start up with fundraising, you need to make it more investable. And having the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme Advance Assurance from HMRC and the Enterprise Investment Scheme does help. You know, it really does, because the investor gets a big tax break and it's very attractive. So if he's looking at two propositions and one isn't and one is registered, he's going to go for the one that is, because of I mean, there might be other factors and circumstances, but certainly as a draw, the SEIS and EIS is really attractive. So, I mean, why the government doing this? Well, they want an initiative to support SMEs, small, medium enterprise businesses and startups. And it was to get people to invest in them because it's good for the economy. They recognise the difficulties that early stage companies have and with raising finances. So giving this generous tax release to investors, it just makes it easier for them to raise money. I talked about there's two different schemes, SEIS and EIS. So SEIS is seed, and that's usually for startups, but your trade must be less. So there's some eligibility criteria here. You know, your trade must be less than 2 years. I'll touch on trade because, you know, it does catch some people out on when trade starts, because it's not as simple as just saying it's just when I did my first sale. Or 7 years is under EIS. You have less than 25 under EIS employees, or less than 250 employees for EIS. And gross assets is just the value of the balance sheet. It can't be more than 200,000 to be eligible for SEIS, or 15 million for EIS. And unlike EIS, SEIS is very much for early stage companies, and the amount that can be invested in that company is no more than £150,000. So each company will have a limit and say, for investors to get the 50% tax break, you can't invest more than 150,000. EIS is higher; you can do up to £1 million, but you only get 30% tax relief. And as a lifetime cap under EIS of 12 million, or if the company is knowledge intensive, which basically means it's like a sort of sciencey R&D business, you can have 20 million. In terms of an investor, you know, the key benefits of EIS that they get exempt from capital gains tax when they sell the shares if they've held them for 3 years. So that's a real big incentive. So in addition to getting the 30% tax relief, when they come to sell their shares, they don't have to pay capital gains tax if they hold them for 3 years. They can defer up to 100% of their investment against any capital gains incurred up to 1 year before or 3 years after disposal. And they're inheritance tax free, as long as the shares are held for an initial period of more than 2 years. And if they're sold at a loss, so i.e. the company doesn't do as well and the investors made a loss, they can offset it against capital gains or income tax. So, you know, I've said a few times, it's a very attractive incentive for investors, and it's super important that you have the insurance. You need to get insurance from HMRC, and what the insurance is, basically a document says, yes, this company is assured that they will get SEIS and EIS status applicate if the investor applies for that through his tax return. Again, we've done loads of these, so it's definitely something that we can help with if you need any assistance with that. The Innovate Fund is something that the government launched in light of COVID-19. It's £750 million available. I mean, they say it's for startups and small, medium-sized businesses, and that's what it is. But one of the caveats is that you've got to have raised 250 grand previously. So if you're a startup, you know, that's not going to be you unless you have done most, probably in the early stages of trying to raise funds. But it's mainly for businesses on research and development and science and techie business, really. But yeah, it's early days with it. The applications are available. You can do the applications now they're coming through the bank. So it's like they say it's like a grant, but it's not really. It's a loan, and it's a convertible loan. And what basically a convertible loan means that the government could convert that loan into shares. If you get the loan and you can't pay it back, then they can convert it into shares. And what basically that means is that the government owns a percentage of your company. How attractive that is, I don't know. We're not doing anything like that for any of our clients, even clients who have raised 250 grand before. We've spoken to a few of them, and they don't like the idea of it. But you know, it's early days with it, and they may change things. So, you know, some general tips from my real life experience. You know, as I said, I've done loads of these, been involved on both sides of the fence of this. You know, one of the things you get asked, you know, how long does it take to get funding? Debt is quickly. Do the application, bank say yes, you can get the money quite quickly. In terms of, you know, equity, this can take a long time. I mean, you know, first of all, it takes a long time trying to find the investors. You do kiss a lot of frogs. You know, you'll get a lot of people kicking the tires, wasting time. Anyone who's done these fundraisers will know that it can be a super difficult thing to do. And I mean, in terms of an equity, the quickest I've ever seen is probably 3 months, and that was really because they had investors lined up already. They'd raised investment before, so they're very attractive for a brand new startup looking for investment and looking to, you know, as the first steps into the investor market. You could be looking at really lucky 6 months, realistically 12 to 18 months. And that includes, you know, going out, meeting investors, doing pitch decks, talking to advisors and everything like that. But if you've already, so it does depend on sort of your connections, and if you're not looking, you've got people to go to straight away, you know, it can be quicker. But yeah, I think just to set an expectation for experience, it can take a long time. I touched on it before, choosing the right investor. This is super critical. I've seen people take money from from investors, and it's just not worked out. I mean, I've got one recently who took a deal last year and hates it, and he's walked away from his business. And when you are a startup or an early stage businesses and cash is so critical, you know, it's so hard. Someone can offer you the money, and it's so hard to turn it down because you're thinking, well, I might not get an offer like this. I might not get this again, and it's always tempting just to take that first one. But I would just so much. I couldn't stress it more enough to say how important it is that you really choose the right. Make sure they're right for you. You know, it's this two-way thing here. They're checking you out to see if you suit them, but you've got to check them out to see if they suit you. Because once you're in bed with them, that's it. It's so difficult to get out. I think it's important to have a good team of advisors around you. there's lots of people that are willing to help with a view of, they believe in your business and they will help you and advise you, and they'll advise you for free on a basis that, once you are successful, you take them on board. I've done this before as an FD, and I've been on the deck as an advisor, and it's it's really important because it adds credibility to also to your business as well, that they've got good experienced teams around you. So, I tend to not do it as much as with the accountancy practice as much now. Obviously I will be around to advise and help, but I just, it's difficult to be represented on pitch decks and things. I am on one at the moment for a business which we're looking for funding, and the only reason is because Anthony Joshua, the boxer's on it, and he's an advisor, and I'm a big fan of his, big fan of boxing. I thought, it'd be quite good to be on the same pitch deck as Anthony. But yeah, gentlemen, we would obviously be there to advise. But yeah, it's really important to get a good team of advisors around you. I wouldn't cold call VCs. You could appreciate that they get hundreds of calls. Make sure it's a warm intro, and that list that I've sent you before, that hopefully will help. But just calling them and just saying, oh, I'm looking for funding, they get hundreds of these, and sending them emails as well, pitch decks, they get hundreds of them. It's really important to, networking, get in there, make sure it's warm. I mean, the list that I've given you here, yeah, you could just send them a call, an email, we use an email address call, but I just wouldn't recommend that. I'd get to know them, maybe find them on LinkedIn, get a bit of rapport, get them to follow you. Do regular updates on LinkedIn about your business so they can see it. It's really important to make sure it's warm, and also tailor your pitches to your audience. I see people, they do an investment, they do a pitch deck and they just leave it and they never change it, and they just roll out the same presentation to loads of different audiences. You need to look and who your audience is and what they're looking for, and change the deck, change the presentation. Don't just use a general template. Crowdfunding. And crowdfunding is difficult. You'll see things like Crowdcube where there's loads of businesses on there, and I would say not a lot of them are successful. And I've done a few crowdfunding ones, and from one of my own businesses, a sports agency. 2 years ago, we were successful. Now we were successful because we had a lot of money to put into the promotion of it. And I'd say with crowdfunding, this is one thing to be careful of, because you can send it to Crowdcube presentation, they'll put it on, and it'll go on their website. It maybe go to a mail shot to their database, and it'll be on there for a few days, and it just gets put down at the bottom, and you end up getting nothing and no traction. Crowdfunding, you have to have so much marketing, and I'm not saying you have to spend hundreds of thousands on it, because it just negates the value of the crowdfunding. But you have to be really on top of it. You have to have a proper plan, campaign, and really pushing out there. I mean, the one I mentioned that we did with the fans agency, that was very different. We had some very high profile people involved with it that were on Sky News and BBC, and were able to tap into those connections. And they were on the 6 o'clock news and Sky Sports and Talk Sport, and raising the profile of it. And we did have a marketing company invest in the business that were able to get it out. But when I look at what we spent and how we did it, yeah, we got a return for it. We did it, but it was hard work. And it's really something that you need to go in with your eyes wide open on crowdfunding. The way they pitch it in Crowdcube and all these other ones, it's like so easy. You just put your deck on, it goes on the website, gets emailed to millions of people. It's not true. But again, obviously, if you needed any help, if that's something you wanted to go down, I've got the experience of doing it for myself, for my own business. I've got experience of helping clients, but I've actually got experience of doing it from one of my own businesses. Make sure you know your numbers. I mean, this is a real killer. I've done a blog here, which is a link on the presentation. I'll put it in the chat box as well. But it's so important that you know your numbers. I mean, I don't know if any of you are fans of like Dragon's Den. In fact, we had a client, he was relatively new to us, but he was on there recently. And, they love the idea. Yeah, great, brilliant, really can see potential for it. And then he started asking about his numbers, and he just failed. He didn't know them, and he got caught out. And then suddenly, the deal's off the table. And so it's really important that you do, you know, no one's expecting to be an accountant, but you do have to know your numbers. You have to be really hot on them. Because ultimately the investors, you know, be it a fund, an angel investor, they know numbers. That's why they're in the position that they are. So they're going to ask you a lot of information, and you really need to be hot on that. So moving on, pitch deck, do's and don'ts. Pitch deck forms a very important part of your fundraise, and this is not just for equity funding. You'll need something like this for grants and debt funding. It's really important you have a presentation prepared which you can pitch your whole idea and business plan in 20 minutes. You should also be able to provide detail if the questions arise. I think that should be no more than 10 pages long. And I'll cover in what they should include. So, you know, in this part of this presentation, I've listed 10 components that investors care about most and how you should approach them. When doing your pitch deck. A few years ago, I was with an angel investor, you know, a very high net worth, who was looking at business, and he used to get, you know, 10 pitch decks a day, and he would literally look at the first 2 pages, and if he didn't interested in it, he just threw it away. And he might have been a brilliant business, but he needed to be sort of, you know, captured at that first stage very early on, and anything that was over 10 pages he wouldn't even bother reading. If someone put in like a 30-page document of, you know, he just like, I'm not reading that. And you know, I do find a lot of investors will do that. They want it short and sweet and punchy, and how they can get their money back, and that's key. So I'll just, for the remainder of the webinar, I mean, I will leave a question and answer time for question and answer if you have anything that you'd like me to explain more in part of the presentation or separately, and also you know, everyone will have my contact details to be able to ask me any questions pertinent to their own business. So in terms of the cover page, you know, obvious things. Cover page should have your logo, business name, and a tagline. Tagline is important. You know, it gives an insight of your company. It's easy to them to remember. So I'll put an example here. For example, we are the Groupon for X or whatever, you know, something that they can relate to the investor. And I've seen this, remember to include your contact information at the front. Yeah. And yeah, people do forget it. And it's like, well, yeah, it's a great deck, but how do I get in touch with you? Especially if your deck was forwarded, because sometimes the decks are forwarded onto people and networks, and we forward it onto some of our networks as well. So you need to make it easy for the person to track you down. Summary. So this was when I mentioned about this investor that I was working with. You know, he would really look at the summary page, and that's key, because it's difficult to do because you want to get everything over, but this is so key. And summarize all the information before you present it. You know, this is what gets your audience interested in your company. Talk up, you know, the most interesting facts about your business, and also any huge milestones that you've hit. You know, this has got to be on the after the first page. It's the first page they'll read after the cover page. This is the first page that they need to get, and this will either turn on or turn off the investor. Team, you know, it's important to explain who your team are. You know, investors are not putting money are not only putting it towards your idea, because ultimately as a startup it is just an idea. They're investing in your team. It's important that they know that the people who are in this business are going to make the concept successful, because they're invested in you and your team. So, you know, make sure you include your background, how it relates to your new company, and what you've done in the past and how it relates to this new company. Highlight if you've got any of your team have done successful exits before, then, you know, so key to highlight that, because that's a real turn on for investors, because they see, well, yeah, they've done this before, so, you know, my money's going to be a bit safer. If you've not, then obviously you can't put anything in. But yeah, if you have got anyone, and it goes back to you can have advisors as part of your team and say, you know, this advisor, he has done these exits and been involved in this, and the investors like to see that you can take a company to acquisition, which is where the investor will make his money, because he makes his money either in you paying him dividends, or you sell the company or list the company, and that's how he'll make a return. You know, if it is applicable, you know, emphasize that your team has worked together in the past. It shows you can and like to work together, because they are investing in a team, they want them to get on. And then, as I said there, advisors, make sure that you list them, and make sure the advisor knows. I've had it where I've had a call and, you know, oh Rob, I've seen your name on this pitch deck, I've seen it, what did you say? I was like, oh, was my name on it? I didn't realise. So yeah, make sure that if you do put anyone's name as an advisor, that they do know that you're doing that and they've got permission to do that. You need to be able to explain the problem or your concept and what it's going to solve. What is your business going to do? How is it going to make things better? Why is it different? You need to prove why investors should care about solving it with your product or service. I mean, if it's not a problem, if it's just a market you want to exploit, then replace that with this slide. But you've got to really explain why you are doing what you're doing. And then when you've got the problem, give them the solution. So this is the problem. Next slide. This is what we're going to do to solve it. This is the value proposition that you're bringing to the table. If you have got a product, then demo the product. This is time to show it. If you are doing a face-to-face pitch, if you've got something online, then include the links in it and give them that private, privileged access, restricted access to anything that's on an online product or an app. And then if you've got case studies to show that your product has worked for existing customers, always include those. I have a section about marketing. You want to show the market size for your product. Investors want to see, are people interested in this product or service? You can include profiles of target customers. Key there, be prepared to answer questions about the cost of acquiring these customers. Yeah, I mean, you've got all these customers, but how much is it going to cost to buy those, to acquire them, to get them, the marketing spend? If you don't know that, then that can turn off an investor straight away. It is difficult to create financial projections for a startup. If you don't have a long financial history, then your forecast is just an educated guess. I've seen hundreds of spreadsheet millionaires, as I call them. The forecasts are amazing, but it's difficult to do. So if you, again, obviously we can help with that, but it is just an educated guess, then it needs to be projected that way. If someone's looking at numbers, well, how do you know that that's what you're going to do sales? How do you know that the costs are going to be that? You need to really understand that. But if you haven't got a trading history, then an investor knows that this is just an educated guess. But it's key. Present milestones that you've already achieved. For instance, say that you've acquired 1,000 customers by a certain date, or that you have a partnership with certain customers or a company. Put that in the presentation. So it's difficult to create financial projections. Put in milestones that you've already achieved. Competition. Every business has competition. Even if you think what you're doing is new and unique, you will have competition, and list it and why your product is different. So investors are looking at this to say, well, is there a market for it? Well, if the competition is doing really well, they can see, well, yeah, there is a market for it, and competition is doing well. How are you going to disrupt that? Why would someone come to you instead of them? So investors do look at that. It's a very key part of the presentation. Business model. Every investor is investing in your business because he wants his money back and some. So it's important to tell them how your plan is going to generate revenue. Show revenue streams for your model. Timeline's super important when you expect. Again, it is a guess. It's an educated guess, but you've got to show it. How are you going to price your product or your service? What does your competition charge? How are you different? If you're charging more, why are you charging more? What extra value is the customer getting? Why would someone buy it from you? If you're charging less, then is there still profit in this venture? This is really the investor sees: is this going to be real? Is my money safe, and will I get a return? So really think about your business model. Financing. If you've already raised money, you'll want to talk about how much you invested and what you did with it. As I said kind of at the beginning, if you've done fundraising before, be it debt, equity or grants, it's really important to put that you've done it before, because investors like that, to see people have invested in your business, and they feel more comfortable that if they're not the first doing it. But again, if it goes back to, if you start up, this may be the first time you do it. So if you've not raised money yet, talk about what you've done with your minimal funding. So when you've got a business, and if you're not taking a loan or done anything, you've started up with your own funds and your minimal funding. So just you present it to say, look, I've done this so far with, you know, friends and family, my own money, and this is savings, and this is what I've done, just in what we could do with a big cash injection. If you personally funded startup, then also make that known. I've seen startups not mention anything, you know, they're not putting their own funds in. Put that in, put it in. Investors like to see that entrepreneurs have some skin in the game and they've put their own money in. And if you're pitching to raise capital, list how much you're looking to raise and intend how to use the funds. That is key, because an investor, if he's interested, he's going to say, well, how much do you want, and how much are you going to give away for your business as well if it's equity, and how you're going to use the funds, and just put in, well, I'm going to do it in marketing, and I'm going to do it, you know, extra staff. Doesn't really fly. That's what I see most of the time. It's just, well, I'm going to spot, I want 500 grand for you, and 400 I'm going to give to Google and Facebook. And it's like, well, that's not really what the investor's looking to see. So hopefully you found those 10 points helpful. I mean, in terms of preparing the presentation, you know, these topics that I've just discussed are critical when pitching to investment community. I'd always say be ready for questions. I might touch on Dragons. I think Dragons Den is a good thing to watch. You know, it gives you a good experience of what investors ask for, and how you know, companies and business owners deal with it. And you know, look at the bad ones and learn from that, and look at the good ones and learn from them. So you know, I think it is a good, because it is, the questions they ask are what investors, that is real life. It's what they ask. So I think when you're in a presentation, you know, there's 3 talking points to keep your investor engaged and interest. Include any press you received. They'd love to see that if you've got press. Highlight any large barriers that are entering your field. You know, people want to see that if they invest in you, then, you know, not everyone can get into it easily. If there's high barriers, then highlight those. Investors are always thinking about the exit. You know, the only reason they want to invest money in your business is because they want to see how much money they'll make. So it's always good to do your research and list any companies that have sold recently in your space, or list any companies that have acquired businesses like you or similar products. Again, if you need help with that, we've got databases and research that I can share with you, and there's a good website. I'll send it in addition to the round with a link with this video to the presentation on how to sort of get a bit of an idea of what businesses are going for and valuations. Actually, one thing I've not mentioned in here, but is key, is that if you are looking for equity valuation, valuing your business, and it's one of the most difficult things to do, because if you're saying, right, well, I'm a startup, I've not got any bit, I've not done any trade, this is the idea, but I want £500,000, I'll give you 25%. You know, investors are going to say, well, how do you value that? What's the basis? And it's one of the biggest questions you get. You know, how do you value it? And so I've done this, and I've got a really good matrix, and I'm able to value startups on certain criteria. And again, I'll share it in the roundup email with this webinar. It's a good little matrix which we use that can help you get that valuation. This is a good website, honestopinion.io. I'll send the link into the chat box for that. This is a website where you can upload your pitch deck, and you'll get a review on it. It's confidential, secure and free, and you'll get a review of your pitch deck, and it will say, you know, how good it is or how bad it is or what you need to work on. So yeah, it's a good little website, that. So just, you know, some tips to note. Investors' equity stake, it can be no higher than 30% in order to qualify for EIS and SEIS, which I mentioned before. Some of the, you know, a lot of these tips just about the SEIS, which I touched on, I'll leave that for you to read. I won't go through that again because I've kind of covered that in detail before. One of the things I mentioned on trade dates, so when we said about SEIS, we said 2 years from trade or 7 years for EIS, and when is your trade? And I had a customer get caught out by this because they just put the first sale and it's not generally, it sometimes isn't just your first sale. So, the last paragraph there, simply paying for developers and incurring costs is ordinarily considered preparing to trade rather than trading. So the trade date for your company could be deemed when you have a beta version of a platform ready to convert free users to paying subscription, not the date your startup raised your first invoice. So it's just, again, if you need any help with that, just give me a shout, because it is key in understanding when your start date is to get the advance assurance. So how can we help? I kind of touched in the presentation, I've got the real life experience of being on both sides of the fence as an investor, as working for investors, and being a company receiving investment. I can get you investor ready. I can build finance models, pitch decks. We can do your accounting, keeping your records up to date, which is really key, and produce financial information and key statistics investors want to see. I touched on I've got the real life experience, and we can introduce you to investors, funds, and business angels. We have networks and people that I know that are clients. I don't just have startup clients and early stage businesses. I have established clients and businesses that are looking for investment opportunities, and individuals looking for investment opportunities. So there's a lot we can do, which perhaps maybe other accountants and if you are with accountants, can't really do. I think the key thing is that I've got, me personally, I've got the real life experience. I've been there. And I can certainly help you with that. So that's the end of the presentation. As I said, a lot of these are applicable no matter what the environment, COVID-19 or a normal environment, these are all applicable. But following these these tips and guides, certainly in terms of where cash is tight and people are holding on to the checkbooks, and following these steps, making sure that you are better prepared than other businesses that are reaching out for investment will make you more attractive. And certainly trying to get funding in this, you've got to make sure that, go back to the thing I mentioned at the beginning, make sure you're on point with it. Make sure that you're not leaving any holes in your investment deck and your raise or anything like that. Just make sure everything is wrapped up neatly, so an investor will look at this and you've got to make it easy for them to invest in your business, especially more so now if they're tightening their checkbooks and purses and not writing the investment checks out as easily as they were before. So I hope you found that helpful. As I said, I'll send you the link to this video. Just a few minutes now if you've got any questions you'd like me to answer generally here, but if there's anything private or personal that you want me to answer in terms of your own business, then you've got my contact details, especially any clients who are attending, but anyone who's not a client, I'll just put my email address in the chat box, but again, you'll get an email with the link to this video and all the other things that I've mentioned, and you can contact me there. So that's my email address. If you want to book a time in with me, then there's my calendar is here. Again, in the chat box there, if you to copy and paste, you can book some time in with me free of charge. Just if it's just a half-an-hour session, just to sort of give you some tips and help out. If you've got a deck already, then let me know and I can have a quick glance of it. Obviously, that website I've sent you, Honest Opinion, can also do that. So I'm just having a look at the questions, but for whatever reason, it's not opening. Let me just see. Oh, there you go. Oh, right, just a comment. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I'll see you in the morning. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. If there's no other questions from anyone, then I'll close the presentation, close the webinar. And as I said, hopefully you found that useful, and you will be able to use a lot of the information. All right. Well, have a good day and take care, everyone. Speak to you soon.